Where to?
Carnegie Hall, please.
Okay, here are your tickets. Enjoy the show.
Any tickets for you?
In New York City, there are lots of ways to get to Carnegie Hall. The subway, a taxi, a walk down 57th Street. This is another way to get to America's most famous home for classical music. Welcome to Carnegie Hall Live. I'm Jeff Spurgeon.
And I'm Fred Child. This broadcast series brings you Carnegie Hall concerts by some of the world's most celebrated artists, and you'll hear the performances exactly as they happen. You are part of the audience sharing the experience of music making at Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall Live is a partnership among Carnegie Hall, WQXR, and American Public Media. And our broadcast partnership this year begins at the beginning. We are about to bring you Carnegie Hall's opening night for the 2012-2013 season.
Carnegie Hall in just a few minutes.
Is Riccardo Muti, celebrated in concert halls and opera houses around the globe. For 19 years, the music director at Milan's La Scala, one of the most famous opera houses in the world. For 12 years, starting in 1980, music director of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And now, in his third season as music director of the orchestra he appears with tonight at Carnegie Hall.
That orchestra is one of the big five American orchestras, a musical institution founded in 1891, the very same year Carnegie Hall opened, as a matter of fact. The orchestra's famous music directors include legends of the podium like Artur Rodzinski, Raphael Kubelik, Fritz Reiner, George Solti, Daniel Barenboim, and now, Riccardo Muti. The orchestra is the Chicago Symphony.
And the famous, perhaps slightly infamous work that will open the new Carnegie Hall season is an oratorio written in the mid-1930s that sets to music poems written in the Middle Ages in Middle Europe. The work is Carl Orff's Carmina Burana. If it's both famous and infamous, it's probably for the same reason, the very first notes of the piece, which have been used in dozens and dozens of movies and TV commercials, to evoke either raucous celebration or impending doom.
Ah, yes, you've heard that music before. If you didn't know it before, that's how Carmina Burana begins. And it's a safe bet that for most people, that's about all they know of Carmina Burana, but there's much more to it than that. Because tonight's concert is the season opener here at Carnegie Hall, there's been a big cocktail party going on for patrons. So this concert actually is not starting as quickly as Carnegie Hall performances usually do. We have a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit more about Carmina Burana.
Movie and TV audiences know how Carmina Burana begins. Professional and accomplished amateur choral singers know how the whole piece goes. It's a big, splashy choral crowd pleaser that isn't Handel's Messiah or Bach's St. Matthew Passion, and you can perform it at just about any time of the year that isn't Christmas or Easter. But Carmina Burana doesn't win friends easily. In the 1980s, the writer and intellectual Gore Vidal was asked on a radio program and asked to bring along some of his favorite classical music. He brought Carmina Burana, and when he was asked why, this is what he said.
Carl Orff is, one of the great lords of kitsch, and I must apologize in a way for liking him, but Mr. Orff, who took these ancient medieval ballads, Latin ballads, and made sort of pastiche out of them, and I think they're quite convincing, not musically so much, as I am as a classicist, as a Latinist, and they are quite beautiful, some of them.
That's the late writer Gore Vidal talking on the radio back in the mid-1980s about one of his favorite pieces of classical music, Carmina Burana, and apologizing for it at the same time. And earlier this week, Fred, I spoke to a critic, not a music critic, but a critic for one of the major papers in town in New York. His nose wrinkled up when I mentioned Carmina Burana and this broadcast. So I asked the critic, have you heard the whole thing? No, I haven't, he confessed. Poor Carmina Burana. Its fans feel guilty about liking it, and people who've heard only the first 30 seconds of it in a commercial or a movie think that's what the whole thing sounds like. Well, tonight we have great performers. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, the Chicago Children's Choir, soprano Rosa Fiola, countertenor Antonio Giovannini, and baritone Auden Iverson. And the great advocate for this work is the maestro of opening night at Carnegie Hall, as Fred found out a few days ago when he spoke with Chicago Symphony Orchestra music director Riccardo Muti, who rechristened Fred at the very start of the interview.
Sì, Fred Child.
Yes,
Federico
exactly.
il Bambino.
Yes.
Sì, Federico il Bambino. What a wonderful name.
Yes, he made me an honorary Italian. And Riccardo Muti told me that Carmina Burana should be taken very seriously.
This music and the text reflects exactly the atmosphere of the medieval period that was certainly a dark era. And the message is practically that in loving and drinking, we can forget the tragic aspects of our life. So it's a pessimistic piece. It's not a piece just to laugh, to smile, or to enjoy.
Riccardo Muti heard Carmina Burana for the first time when he was a student at the Music Conservatory in Milan in the 1960s. Because of the distinctive orchestrations by Carl Orff, Carmina Burana was part of Muti's studies in his conducting and composition classes. Muti also took 8 years of Latin in school, and that came in handy when he encountered the texts of Carmina Burana.
Yeah, we should probably say a word or two about those. First of all, you can read them tonight as you listen. Just go online to carnegiehall.org/WQXR. You'll find the original languages there and English translations. Carl Orff was in a bookstore in his native Germany in 1934 when he spotted a collection of medieval poetry written in the 11th and 12th centuries, probably in monasteries in what is now the Styrian region of Austria and the Bavarian region of Germany. The manuscripts had been stored for centuries in a particular Bavarian monastery, and that's where the name of the collection comes from. Carmina Burana means Songs of Bavaria. Most of the poetry is in Latin, but there is some Old High German and a French tongue called Provençal as well. Again, the texts and translations are online at carnegiehall.org/WQXR.
Carl Orff said later that even when he was in that bookshop with the medieval poetry in hand, the music of Carmina Burana began to come to him, and he sketched the opening chorus that same day with Fortune's wheel unstoppably turning over and over and over. The premiere of Carmina Burana was a big success in 1937, and the piece has remained a hit ever since. Orff understood that the medieval world in which the poetry of Carmina Burana was written was very different from our own time, and yet the human condition is always the human condition.
You have to realize that Carl Orff was a man of great culture. He tried to put in music to evoke the atmosphere of the medieval time, and with this desperate and passionate attitude that young students of the old universities could have. Like the students today, you know, sometimes they need to forget all the tragedies or the drama of our life, trying to do things that can be sometimes excessive, you know.
So the major themes of Carmina Burana are the turns and twists of fortune and the desire to indulge in excess. Love and alcohol come up in these songs more than a few times. Sex, drugs, and, well, rock and roll was almost 1,000 years in the future when the poems were written, and a couple of decades away when Orff wrote the music. But as another song goes, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That's right. The music Orff wrote may not be rock and roll, but it does have great rhythm and also great lyricism.
That's true, and Muti mentioned that specifically in our conversation.
There is one of the most beautiful moments of the piece, the aria sung by the soprano, in Trutina Mentis, that this aria is one of the most beautiful moments. And fortunately, we have a soprano that has a fantastic voice and can create, like Arlene Auger did many decades ago in London, a moment of great poetry and erotism also in music.
Muti means eroticism, and let's hear a little bit of Arlene Auger in the recording she made with Riccardo Muti and the Philharmonia Orchestra. Just a bit of that 1980 recording of Carmina Burana. Arlene Auger, the soprano, Riccardo Muti conducting the Philharmonia Orchestra, 1980 recording. We're about to hear a live performance at Carnegie Hall of Carmina Burana by Carl Orff. I'm Fred Child with Jeff Spurgeon. We'd like to invite you to join the Twitter conversation tonight. Use the hashtag CHLive and let us know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Jeff Spurgeon, I believe I know where in the world you are. I think you're right backstage here at Carnegie Hall.
Yes, indeed. And a remodeled backstage. They've been doing a lot of work here at Carnegie Hall. They're not quite done yet. The Isaac Stern Auditorium and the Ronald O. Perlman stage look exactly the same, but they've been doing work over the summer back here. So things are just a little crisper. And you heard the applause for the concertmaster of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. He's out on stage. Our soloist is standing by right now backstage, and I believe the stage door is going to open for them. And Maestro Muti is just about ready to step out on stage as well.
The stage is packed. The full Chicago Symphony Orchestra and chorus on stage, plus a children's choir as well. They're about to be joined by conductor Riccardo Muti and our soloists. That will be soprano Rosa Fiola, countertenor, not tenor as specified in the music. Riccardo Muti likes to use a countertenor when he does Carmina Burana. The countertenor is Antonio Giovannini. The baritone is Auden Iverson. And the conductor, of course, now coming out on stage, the music director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Riccardo Muti. He spreads his hands as he walks out, asks the entire Chicago Symphony Orchestra and chorus to join him in a bow right before the music begins on opening night here at Carnegie Hall. It's Carmina Burana by Carl Orff with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, opening night from Carnegie Hall live. O fortuna velut luna statu variabilis. O fortune, like the moon, always changing. No matter what we do, we're subject to the whim of fortune, and fortune is so often cruel. Life is hard. Might as well enjoy ourselves while we can because we know it gets worse and ends badly. That sentiment beginning and ending that music. Carmina Burana by Carl Orff. You've just heard a live performance at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Riccardo Muti conducting the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus and the Chicago Children's Choir, and 3 vocal soloists as well. Soprano Rosa Fiola, countertenor Antonio Giovannini, and baritone Auden Iverson. The audience on their feet here at Carnegie Hall as Riccardo Muti and our 3 vocal soloists, having already taken a series of bows, now walking off stage to our left as we're looking at the stage here at Carnegie Hall. I'm Fred Child in the broadcast booth. My co-host Jeff Spurgeon right backstage.
And just right near me now are the soloists and Maestro Muti coming off stage with congratulations to each other, and also for 2 people who we have not seen on stage in this performance but have been integral to it. They are Dwayne Wolfe and Josephine Lee, the directors of the Chicago Symphony Chorus and the Chicago Children's Choir. Back on stage now, our soloists and those choir directors, followed by Maestro Muti.
Those choir directors getting a moment on stage now and getting to take a bow. Dwayne Wolfe, chorus director of the Chicago Symphony Chorus. Josephine Lee, artistic director of the Chicago Children's Choir. And you can hear the cheer for the work of both choirs.
You bet. What an exciting performance. The Chicago Symphony Chorus has an absolutely magnificent sound, and they are both choruses of amazing tradition. Fritz Reiner asked Margaret Hillis to start the Chicago Symphony Chorus in 1955, and it was just a year later that the Children's Chorus was begun in Chicago. So a long tradition for both ensembles, and wow, what excellent work they did tonight.
And the boys of the Children's Choir up in the balcony, up to the right of conductor Riccardo Muti as he's looking at the orchestra, and he just gestured up to the boys in the choir. Nice cheer for the boys in the Chicago Children's Choir as well. And now Riccardo Muti picking out individual members of the Chicago Symphony. Nice bow now for the trumpet players, the brass players, always that great burnished sound, that golden sound of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra brass section. Now the wind players getting, the percussion section getting a well-deserved bow as well. They were kept quite busy. Now the wind players getting a bow. So many solos over the course of that hour-long piece, Carmina Burana by Carl Orff. And now a handshake with the concertmaster, Robert Chen. There are flashes going off throughout the hall here. Officially, photographs not allowed inside Carnegie Hall, but a lot of folks here at Carnegie Hall have powered up their phones and are taking pictures of this remarkable moment at the end of Carmina Burana, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, the Chicago Children's Choir, getting that adulation from the full house here at Carnegie Hall.
And if you can get away with an illicit photograph at Carnegie Hall, opening night's probably your best bet. So once again off stage now, our soloists and the chorus directors and Maestro Muti as well. And so we're looking backstage. Maestro Muti just passed me. He's looking at the ushers, who their arms are full of bouquets. So they'll be following them out on stage in just a moment.
Well, I guess that means we're getting at least one more bow.
I think so. Maestro Muti is so at ease backstage. He was singing a little bit and chatting with everybody, and in a jovial, even jocular mood. Very relaxed, and no doubt that goes right through to all the performers on stage too. Now here they come. The Carnegie Hall, well, not quite yet. Those cheers are not for the Carnegie Hall ushers, but they deserve them too. The ushers will bring back a set of bouquets onto the stage in just a moment. But some more applause for the soloists in this performance tonight at Carnegie Hall.
That last cheer that went up as everyone on stage got up on their feet. All the members of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus and the Chicago Children's Choir, they all got up on their feet, and a big cheer for all the musicians after that performance of Carmina Burana. Here come the bouquets. Here come the ushers. Bouquets being handed out to Riccardo Muti and our 3 vocal soloists, soprano Rosa Fiola, countertenor Antonio Giovannini, and baritone Auden Iverson. Countertenor, not tenor, as Carl Orff actually specifies in the music, but Riccardo Muti thinks there's one section in particular, a song in the very heart the very middle of Carmina Burana, the roasting swan song. It's actually from the point of view of this swan who's singing, "I used to be beautiful swimming on a lake, now I'm being roasted over an open fire and I'm about to be eaten." Now that's normally sung by a tenor. Riccardo Muti thought, no, it's just too high for a tenor. There's a whole series of high Ds, and tenors wind up playing it for comedy, and you never know if they're going to reach those notes. No, that really should be tragic, says Riccardo Muti. Let's use a countertenor. We'll all be at ease knowing the countertenor will reach those notes, and it just sounds better. Riccardo Muti, when he did that in 1980, actually got the thumbs up for that from Carl Orff himself.
That's a pretty wonderful distinction to make. But you know, as we were listening, Fred, the soprano has a very high moment. It really is the money note in the piece in her aria. And the baritone part is very high, too. And we heard Auden Iverson switching registers pretty seamlessly, it seemed to me. But he was doing some falsetto work. This piece lies high for all the singers. It's tricky.
Yes, high for all the singers indeed, and there was actually a lot of chat about that in our chat room. The chat has been very active tonight, and we encourage you to join the chat on Twitter. Use the hashtag CHLive to join the chat on Twitter, and let us know where you're listening from.
And we're happy to
that chat as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Fred, and we're happy to have lots of Chicagoans listening tonight and participating in the chat and listening at WFMT in Chicago. We're very happy they've joined the Carnegie Hall Live family in the second season of these broadcasts that are a cooperative venture of WQXR in New York and of American Public Media in Minnesota and of Carnegie Hall.
This applause has been going on now for, about 8 minutes now. Our conductor, Riccardo Muti, has come back on stage with the soloists, all carrying their bouquets. You don't always see that. Riccardo Muti looking up to the boys up in the balcony. Nice cheer for the boys from the children's chorus. Everybody on stage on their feet again, everyone in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and chorus, and everybody in the house on their feet as well, as this standing ovation is just going on and on and on after this performance of Carmina Burana by Carl Orff.
I don't think the music allows you to stay seated. If the performance is of good quality, the music demands that you get up. It's incredibly exciting, in spite of the fact that the text begins and ends on a note that says that fortune is a cruel mistress, completely capricious, and she'll treat you fine one day and hurl you to the ground the next. And yet, nobody's going to go away from this performance tonight not feeling happy. I guess it's maybe good the text is mostly in Latin then, isn't it?
It is. And Riccardo Muti, actually, when we had a chance to talk a few days ago, he said he likes to emphasize that tragedy of it, that section that is so well known that begins and ends the piece, O Fortuna, he says, is too often done as a party piece, as a celebration. He says, no, it really should be tragedy. It's looking at life with a very bleak outlook, and let's put that across. And this performance did, the tragedy of the human condition, and all its ups and all its downs, from Carmina Burana, Carl Orff, Riccardo Muti, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. And Riccardo Muti gave one last big smile to the house here at Carnegie Hall, waved, and off he went. And with that, the applause finally came to an end.
And as this piece has come to an end and the musicians are beginning to file off stage, the audience beginning to leave Carnegie Hall, I managed to grab the arm of one of the principals of this performance tonight. He is the director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. The Chicago Symphony Chorus. Dwayne Wolf, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for taking a minute to talk with us.
It's a great evening.
Isn't it? It's a fabulous piece.
Yep.
What do you tell the singers to prepare for this piece that maybe is a little bit different from what you tell them for other kinds of work?
It's all about diction. There's so many words, and a language is a little bit abstruse and sometimes, quite foreign to us, of course, because of its age. But if we get the diction, if we get the articulations, then we're a long way there just for getting the sound that's needed.
And do you work with Maestro Muti in preparing a piece like this, or does he say, bring me what you got and it'll be fine?
A good deal of it is bring me what you got, but we do have conversations about some passages and things where I need to find out exactly what he wants to have accomplished.
You know, it's an interesting idea, too, that you said it's important in choral singing. Amateurs and professionals know it, too, but it's an interesting point. Even within a language that virtually nobody understands,
correct,
you still have to speak it, sing it very carefully.
Very carefully. Every single syllable, every consonant has to get there. And if it's not placed right, then there is no rhythmic integrity. And, of course, Carmina Burana is a great deal about rhythm.
Right. How many people are in the chorus tonight?
145.
Now, the chorus, it has a great, big, fat, rich, wonderful sound, but it's these people are light on their feet. How do you do that?
What do you mean light on the feet?
I mean, there's no lumbering in this chorus. Everybody is there and alert, and the sound, though it's big and full, is not heavy. It's not flat-footed.
That's right, it's not. Well, we work hard to make sure that we've got always got a leggero background.
What do you mean?
A lightness, a lightness in the, but also it's easy for that to become so light that there is no real color in the sound. So we're constantly going for the color, and if we can get the notes short enough with good color, then we get the lightness that you're talking about.
Does the Chicago Symphony Chorus, because of its great legacy in the city and with the orchestra, does it have a sound of its own that distinguishes it from another chorus? And do you think about that, or we have a bunch of great singers, we're going to make great music as the composers wanted?
Actually, believe it or not, I don't think so much about a sound for the Chicago Symphony Chorus as I do a sound for each piece that we do. Carmina has a very different sound from Mrs. Solemnis, which we're doing next month, which has a different sound from Bach Viva our Mass. So we're constantly trying to find the sound for that's appropriate for that.
Dwayne Wolf, it's a pleasure to talk to you. It was a thrill to hear the Chicago Symphony the Chicago Symphony Chorus, your ensemble, tonight at Carnegie Hall. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
It's a great, great pleasure. All right, Fred.
That's Jeff Spurgeon backstage here at Carnegie Hall, and those 145 members of the Chicago Symphony Chorus still filing off stage. There are a lot of them. It takes them a long time to get on stage and off stage. Jeff, you're wearing your tuxedo tonight, and I have to say, looking very dapper, but in your tuxedo, partly because you went to part of the reception that was before the concert tonight.
What do you mean partly? It's the radio. I don't really need to wear a tuxedo, but in fact I did, because yes, they had a party for a number of Carnegie Hall patrons earlier tonight, and because we didn't have a chance to chat with the audience, no intermission. We often talk with audience members during the middle portion of these programs. So we went to the cocktail party early. I took a microphone and I picked somebody at random and just went up to him and said, "What's your name?"
I'm Clyde Gillinson, and I'm the Executive and Artistic Director.
I knew that. I did.
So
I
have
knew
no
that.
choice.
I knew that. So the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, a wonderful way to start a new Carnegie Hall season, but really, Carmina Burana? Isn't that a little kitschy?
The whole thing about opening night is it's got to be fun, it's got to be enjoyable, it shouldn't be too long either. And Riccardo Muti wanted to do it. But I think it'll be a spectacular opening night.
It's a crowd pleaser for sure.
And what's wrong with that for opening night?
And it's well fielded, Clive Gillinson. Thank you very much. And also here is, what's your name, please?
My name's Renee Fleming.
I knew that, but we have a custom of asking, so forgive me. How did you get to Carnegie Hall tonight?
Tonight is actually a cute story because I left my tickets at home because guess what? I never use tickets for anything. I'm always going in the back door. You know, I'm not used to this. Busman's holiday. I'm so excited to be here.
But not really, because you just came from rehearsal at the Metropolitan Opera, I believe.
Yeah.
Did you not?
Yes, we opened an Otello on Tuesday, and we had a big major dress rehearsal today.
Carmina Burana, do you know this work? Have you sung the soprano part in it? Or maybe you sung it even as a young person, as a chorus member?
I think this work is one of the universal pieces that everybody loves and knows and doesn't even realize they know it. I sang the piece a couple of times when I was a student, and it is absolutely nerve-wracking because it's all this low, beautiful music, and suddenly you have this gorgeous a cappella expression that goes up to the stratosphere.
All right, so you're revisiting an old friend in a way, and we'll see you later this season on this series for a performance you're doing with Susan Graham.
Yes, exactly. We're going to have great fun. It's going to be wonderful.
And right next to Renee Fleming, your name?
Wait a second. I'm getting old. I've forgotten.
No, you haven't. It's Marilyn Horn. We know. How'd you get to Carnegie Hall tonight? There was no rehearsal involved tonight.
No, I didn't have to rehearse. I came by car.
Beautiful. I have to ask you, have you sung Carmina Burana?
I did. You know, I sang in the chorus in the first time it hit Los Angeles, so that was probably the early 50s.
Uh-huh.
And then shortly thereafter, maybe 3 years or so, I sang the solo part, the low part, not the high one, in the Hollywood Bowl with Stokowski.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
What was it like to work with him?
He was fabulous. He just made motions for the orchestra to stay out of the way. But he had that great ability, I felt, that you want from a conductor, somebody who knows how to follow and lead at the same time.
Wow, that's a wonderful way to describe what a
Yeah.
conductor has to do, especially for singers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about the piece? Do you like the piece, or is
No,
it...
I love it because it's, you know, it's not the greatest music in the world, but it's exciting and it's thrilling, and to have this orchestra and this chorus to sing it, oh, I can't wait. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Marilyn Horne, thank you.
Jeff Spurgeon was backstage right before the concert talking with Marilyn Horne and Renee Fleming and Clive Gillinson as well. Well, what a buzz of energy and excitement you could hear before the concert, and it continued all the way through the performance by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus and the Chicago Children's Choir. Carmina Burana by Carl Orff, Riccardo Muti conducting this performance from Carnegie Hall live, and now what you hear on stage is just the stage being broken down.
There's an amazing amount of open space on that stage where just moments ago it was full of people and musical instruments, and now it's practically bare. The stagehands here are working at a breakneck pace. They've got another Chicago concert tomorrow night, so it's a busy place all the time here at Carnegie Hall.
Thanks to some of the folks who helped make tonight's broadcast possible. Clive Gillinson and the staff of Carnegie Hall. For American Public Media, the technical director is Zach Rose. The managing director is Brian Newhouse. For WQXR, Vice President Graham Parker. WQXR's technical team includes Edward Haber, George Wellington, Noriko Okabe, and Bill Moss. This broadcast of Carnegie Hall Live is produced by WQXR in partnership with APM and is distributed by APM, American Public Media. From WQXR and APM, this is Carnegie Hall Live.